In 2009, writer Jonathan Hickman took over writing the Fantastic Four and took them all on a wild ride through two ongoing series as they set out to solve everything. Hickman first started writing the Fantastic Four with the five-part miniseries Dark Reign: Fantastic Four. As background, following the superhuman Civil War, Mr. Fantastic joined the secret world-controlling Illuminati, the secret invasion of the Skrulls, and Spider-Man villain Norman Osborn became President of the United States and head of S.H.I.E.L.D., Mr. Fantastic decided to re-examine his life choices. The series opens up as Mr. Fantastic, determined to solve everything, creates a device called the Bridge that lets him peek into other worlds to see how they solve their situations, leading him to come to the conclusion that he can only fix his problems by working alone, as the involvement of others causes complications. He was also reached out to by others just like him, although their identities remained hidden. The Bridge also inadvertently sent the Human Torch, Thing, and Invisible Woman through alternate realities, illustrating Mr. Fantastic's struggle beautifully. Franklin and Valeria also stopped Norman Osborn from detaining the FF in a fun subplot that let the two kids show off their spunk. It's a great start to Hickman's run. Hickman would pick up the main book with Fantastic Four number 570 in 2009. His first story arc picks up right where the mini leaves off, with Mr. Fantastic encountering the multiversal visitors, alternate universe versions of himself, called the Council of Reeds, after his first name. Together, the Council works to bring peace to the multiverse. After working in his home universe to stop the supervillain Wizard and taking in his clone child, Reed decides to join the Council. While Human Torch, Thing, and the kids go on a vacation to New World, Mr. Fantastic pours all his effort into the Council, even sacrificing his time with his wife in the process. After helping to stop a celestial invasion, one of the Reeds informs Mr. Fantastic that they all become so absorbed in their work that they sacrifice their family, which Mr. Fantastic decides he doesn't want, causing him to quit to spend time with Invisible Woman. It's a solid opening arc, stressing the family aspect of the Fantastic Four that has defined them since their inception, reasserting that they will always be a family first. In number 573, Human Torch, Thing, Franklin, and Valeria arrive on New World, which is supposed to be a paradise to save the inhabitants of Earth in the future after it has become uninhabitable, but the sun collapsed into a black hole and turned the place into a dystopia. Valeria uses her super genius to help repair the portal there, allowing the Fantastic Four to return home, and leaving New World pilot and engineer Ted Castle to try and save the place, as he won't return home with them. After that, it's Franklin's birthday, and all of his friends come and join, including homeless mutants Artie and Leech, who are given a place to stay at the Fantastic Four's Baxter building if they want. Mr. Fantastic also has a proposal for former Power Pack leader Alex, but we'll have to wait to see what it is. More importantly, after the party's over, Franklin and Valeria are confronted by Strange Man, who knocks out Franklin and privately tells Valeria that a war between the Four Kingdoms is coming, and Dr. Doom is the salvation. Valeria indicates that he's an older version of Franklin, but withholds everything from her parents. After this is a four-part thematic arc called Prime Elements. Part 1 sees the Fantastic Four visit the Moloids underground in an ancient city built by the High Evolutionary that evolves beings backwards. It is raised to the surface, and the Fantastic Four take in some hyper-intelligent Moloid children from the city. Part 2 sees them meet another civilization of Atlantis beneath Antarctica, where the Invisible Woman becomes the spokesperson for humanity and decides to seek out Namor, the king of the rest of Atlantis. Part 3 brings together a bunch of alien races that were experimented on by the alien Kree, including the Inhumans, where they have united to form a universal Inhuman city on the moon, to be led by the Inhuman King Black Bolt. Finally, Part 4 reveals that the superhuman prison in the Negative Zone, 42, has been transformed into a city by Blastar, but is attacked by the forces of the deceased Annihilus, former master of the Negative Zone. The Inhumans send the Light Force as a sacrifice of power, and the New Atlanteans go there to show Namor their strength, starting a battle of the four cities like in future Franklin's prophecy to Valeria. We're then brought to the heroic age of Marvel, which sees Mr. Fantastic start the future foundation from all of the genius kids he's gathered in order to build humanity a better and brighter future among the stars. However, Franklin feels a bit left out, so Human Torch takes him and Leech to the mall where they beat up Arcade, who is trying to murder people with toys. In issues 581 and 582, we catch up with future Franklin, who is hanging out with future Valeria and Mr. Fantastic's dad, Nathaniel, in a pocket universe in the future. Nathaniel goes back in time to recruit college-age Mr. Fantastic, Thing, and Dr. Doom to help him fight an evil version of himself hell-bent on killing him, as all the multiverse's Nathaniels were forced to fight in a duel to the death. They help him kill his tormentor, although Doom has to kill the evil Nathaniel. Meanwhile, future Valeria tells Invisible Woman that things will get dark, but she has to hold together to prevent the future from falling apart. Future Valeria jumps back into the future, where she and future Franklin dive headlong into the void and try and survive and send a wave back in time to avert the disastrous future. It's certainly a strong setup for the arcs to come. Issue 583 kicks off the first big arc of this run, called 3, as it will end with the death of one of the members of the Fantastic Four. The Thing takes a serum created by the Future Foundation to restore himself to a normal human for a week, and it works. So the Human Torch takes him around to enjoy all the things he couldn't do as the Thing. Meanwhile, Valeria makes a secret deal with Dr. Doom regarding Doom's lowered intelligence, the Council of Reeds, and the end of the world. Over the course of the next 4 issues, Mr. Fantastic is taken to New World by Galactus, who has found out that New World will kill Galactus in the future. Invisible Woman goes to a peace summit between Namor and the old Atlanteans, and Human Torch, Thing, and the Future Foundation have to fight off an invasion from the Negative Zone through the gate in their base. Invisible Woman is almost killed, but when Namor kills the king of old Atlantis, Invisible Woman is made queen, establishing a shaky peace. On New World, Mr. Fantastic is able to save the consciousnesses of everyone there, as they are a hive mind, right before Galactus destroys it. However, in order to stop the Negative Zone invasion, the gate has to be closed from the other side, meaning someone will be trapped and die. The Thing volunteers, but Human Torch pushes him back through the portal and sacrifices himself to stop the invasion, seemingly dying in the process. Issue 588 is the end of this first run on Fantastic Four, and is entirely silent for nearly the whole issue as everyone mourns for the Human Torch. Invisible Woman shuts herself off, Thing returns to his stony form and breaks down mentally, and Mr. Fantastic tries and fails to get Human Torch back. The issue ends with a conversation between Franklin and Spider-Man, where Spider-Man tells Franklin that the sadness will eventually go away, replaced with all the fond memories they had, and that everything will eventually be okay. This works great since Spider-Man also lost his uncle, and serves as a nice bonding moment and sequitur into the next series. This first run of Fantastic Four is really great, highlighting that the team is a family and showing them working towards the future, even if things don't go as planned. Hickman's run isn't over, though, as he also has the immediate relaunch of the book, titled FF, which focuses on the Future Foundation. FF number 1 sees both Spider-Man and Nathaniel join the team, with Spider-Man specifically replacing Human Torch, per his request left in a message to be read post-mortem. Things start off poorly when the evil scientific organization AIM breaks the wizard out of jail, and get even worse when Valeria and Nathaniel bring Dr. Doom into the Future Foundation. Thing is pissed and takes a leave of absence after Mr. Fantastic acquiesces and lets him join. Dr. Doom is presently kind of an imbecile, so the Future Foundation restores his mind using Doom's adopted son, Kristoff, who is ruling Latveria in Doom's place. Doom then reveals that he made a deal with Valeria, to kill Mr. Fantastic, kicking off a very long continuous story arc. Issues 3, 4, and 5 see Mr. Fantastic and Dr. Doom assemble an army of the Fantastic Four's most intelligent supervillains to try and stop the Council of Reeds, who have escaped to Earth to build a death machine to stop the mad Celestials that are destroying their homes. The Reeds ally with the Mole Man to destroy the peak of Atlantis and Antarctica before constructing the Death Machine, Sol's Anvil, and the High Evolutionaries' Forever City. Their plan is then interrupted by the return of the Inhumans, King Black Bolt included. You see, Black Bolt was supposed to have died inside of the Vault in reality back during War of Kings, but he managed to break out, supposedly to fulfill his destiny of killing the Kree Supreme Intelligence. Also, there were 100 Inhuman races created across the universe by the Kree, but when one of them was destined to kill the Supreme Intelligence, all but 5 races were murdered, those 5 becoming the Universal Inhumans. The Supreme Intelligence also made a seed to revive itself, which is handy considering it is also dead. And to get this out of the way, the Inhuman Princess Crystal is married to the Kree accuser Ronan, who's essentially leader of the Kree, and the pair stay behind on the Kree homeworld Apollo while the other Inhumans come to Earth. This explanation takes 2 whole issues. The Inhumans then attack the Forever City with full force while Mr. Fantastic, Spider-Man, Nathaniel, and the villains go try to minimize casualties. They do a terrible job as many die, 2 of the alternate Reeds are captured, and the 3rd escapes with Dr. Doom. Black Bolt and Medusa then effectively tell Mr. Fantastic to stay out of their way, and sends him and his crew through a door that sends them where they need to be. Nathaniel is sent to Latveria to help Dr. Doom and the Reed, Spider-Man is sent to give Thing a pick-me-up, and Mr. Fantastic is sent home where he makes up with Invisible Woman and promises to return things to normal. Thing then arrives with the Avengers as backup, represented by Iron Man, Captain America, and, hilariously, Hawkeye. Issue 11 sits on the precipice of battle as Ronan brings the Kree to Earth and uses the 2 alternate Reeds to form the basis for the resurrected Supreme Intelligence. The Kree fleet then arrives to wage war and destroy Earth to stop the Inhumans as the Avengers and Fantastic Four get ready to stop them. With this, the main Fantastic Four book comes back with issue 600, since the previous FF issues counted, but that doesn't mean FF is done. Instead, the 2 series will run simultaneously in 2 separate areas to finish the same plotline of Fantastic Four 604. This 100-page spectacular sees the war for Earth begin as creatures from the Negative Zone attempt to open the portal in the Baxter building. Valeria uses a device to teleport everyone away, but when the portal opens, it is revealed that the Human Torch runs the show. As it happened, he and the Inhuman Light Brigade were kept alive as gladiators for the revived Annihilus. They were able to break free and steal Annihilus's cosmic control rod, allowing them to control the forces of the negative zone. Back in the real world, Mr. Fantastic is revealed to have a device to let him summon Galactus, as Galactus needs to keep the Earth intact until he can destroy the Galactus seed there, although it's basically a convoluted reason to let Galactus help. Plus, Franklin's practicing his powers under the guidance of a mysterious figure. Meanwhile, the Future Foundation winds up in Latveria, where they help Nathaniel, Doom, and the Reed hold off the mad Celestials that destroy the Council. Everything goes according to Valeria's plan, but the Celestials come through and Doom and the Reed seemingly perish in the fight. Back in New York, Human Torch uses the Negative Zone's monsters to battle the Kree Armada, but pieces are falling to Earth. Mr. Fantastic summons Galactus, who scares off the Armada, which is followed back to the Kree homeworld by the Inhumans as the mad Celestials arrive. Fantastic Four 603 and FF15 take place pretty much at the same time and cover the same general events, but from two perspectives. The Future Foundation calls the Fantastic Four to Soul's Anvil, the Council's superweapon, and de-evolve the evolved Moloids that are there. The Fantastic Four arrives as Galactus is defeated by the Mad Celestials. Although Soul's Anvil is fired, it isn't enough, and the Celestials destroy it. All hope seems lost until Future Franklin and Future Valeria arrive. Issue 604 sees Kid Franklin lend the future Franklin, who was the disembodied voice teaching Franklin, his powers so he can use Galactus as his herald and together beat the Mad Celestials, securing the future. Throughout the issue-long fight, Nathaniel explains that the one thing that the Council could never create was life, because they abandoned all of their emotions, and in the end, that lack of life destroyed them, because children are what would save the world, literally in the case of Franklin. It brings a thematic closure to the narrative, with the whole story being about looking towards the future and the next generation, and putting the family back in Marvel's first family. The big overarching plot finished, the rest of the two series mostly just serve as an epilogue to bring things back to normal, with Fantastic Four focusing on Mr. Fantastic and FF focusing on the Future Foundation. This process of rebuilding is exemplified with FF16, which is literally just Valeria narrating everyone cleaning up New York after the battle, with them dumping all the trash into the negative zone for rebuilding. Mr. Fantastic also builds a space station called the Foundation, and Dr. Doom survives his ordeal, of course. The Human Torch then tries to room with Spider-Man for a bit, but after pissing him off, partying with the Light Brigade, and leaving Annihilus on the toilet, Spider-Man kicks him out, right back to the Baxter Building. With Mr. Fantastic busy, Human Torch takes the Future Foundation to the Negative Zone, where his generals are rebelling. They request the right to vote to choose their leader, and after the Future Foundation hatches up some laws, Human Torch agrees, with Annihilus being predictably elected. Over in Fantastic Four, issue 605 sees Mr. Fantastic and his dad built a time machine, where they learn that the Future Foundation endures into the future, as does Thing, who only ages while human, letting him live for only 4,000 years, aided by the immortal Franklin. It is a humbling experience for Mr. Fantastic, who decides to spend some more time with his oldest friend in the present. The oddly numbered 605.1 tells the tale of a Nazi Mr. Fantastic who gets the Infinity Gauntlet, becomes God, and destroys everything before winding up at the Council of Reeds. Issue 606 is a fun one, showing the Fantastic Four traveling through a human body to remove a tumor, framed like it's any other otherworldly adventure. The next two issues see the Fantastic Four go to Wakanda to fight Anubis alongside the Black Panthers, with T'Challa getting glimpses of Avengers vs. X-Men and forming a life bond with Mr. Fantastic. Meanwhile, the Future Foundation goes on a safari in FF19, outsmarts some scavengers, and recruit a young Wakandan girl to the Foundation. FF20 and 21 consist of a two-parter where Black Bolt and the Kree Supreme Intelligence make a deal where the Universal Inhumans will survive, but the Supreme Intelligence will take back control of the Kree Empire. This also forcefully separates Ronan and Crystal, because only a king would ruin true love. The Light Brigade also restore Annihilus to his position as ruler of the Negative Zone, but Human Torch has to keep the Cosmic Control Rod, letting him keep the Negative Zone in check. Over in Fantastic Four 609, more space adventures conclude when the people from New World turn the body of the future Galactus into a timeship to land on Earth in the future they came from, ensuring their survival without conflict. Fantastic Four 610 sees the team confront the Wizard, who has teamed up with AIM and legally taken control of an island. Mr. Fantastic takes the Wizard to prison, where Bentley, the Wizard's clone the Future Foundation is raising, confronts him with a helmet to help him focus. This is continued in FF22, where Bentley is able to prove himself better than the Wizard by not putting the helmet on and kicking his dad in the nuts. It's an okay ending to the Wizard's story, but it doesn't pack much oomph. Fantastic Four 611 is the finale of the series for real, and sees the team rescue Dr. Doom from the new universe he created in his image, which is obviously somewhat tyrannical. Nathaniel and future Valeria then go out into the multiverse to talk to all the other orphan Reeds. FF23, the true finale of Hickman's run, is about Franklin, with future Franklin showing him all he can do with his powers and letting them run wild, because sometimes before you can walk, you have to run. In the end, future Franklin leaves as well, leaving everything quiet, the same as it was before. All of these issues together form an impressive story over the course of 3 years that really does feel epic in scale and pays off by the end, even if some of the tangling events in Obtuse foreshadowing are a bit confusing, but it all makes sense in retrospect. Overall, this is a series about looking to the future, about making the old new again. However, despite the brilliant storyline, the messaging seems to be a bit contradictory. Despite the story itself seeming to be about looking towards the future and building towards a better future, which is the whole point of the Future Foundation and the plans of future Franklin and Valeria, the series itself seems to be about reinstating the past. Going into this series, some of Marvel's status quo had been disrupted, such as Black Bolt, the Supreme Intelligence, and Annihilus being dead, Crystal and Ronan being together, and Doctor Doom being depowered. And by the end of FF23, all of these had been reversed, with Black Bolt, the Supreme Intelligence, and Annihilus coming back to life and retaking their thrones, Crystal and Ronan being split up, and Doom's powers being restored. Plus, few of the events of the series stick, with the Human Torch's death being undone, the Forever City being introduced and destroyed, New World being destroyed and then undestroyed, the new city of Atlantis being destroyed, and all the Reeds of the newly introduced Council being killed. The only things that stick are the Universal Inhumans, the Future Foundation, and the growth of the Fantastic Four and Friends. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I do find it extremely interesting that, in the book's opinion, the only way to move towards the future is to go back and not just change the past, but reinstate it, to make the new old and make the old new again. If you want to read the series for yourself, which I highly recommend, here's my recommended reading order for you to follow, which is the one I used for this retrospective. One thing I will say is that if you start from the middle, you're going to be very confused. This is one long storyline, not 60 little ones. With that said, happy readings.